See, that's the thing. All right. See, that's a big thing that actually bothers me right now is like this subversion of expectations nonsense. I genuinely don't like it. And I think it's poor writing. And here's why I think it's poor writing. Because what you're essentially saying when you, and I'm going to tell you right now, Ryan Johnson is the worst of it. I can't tell you a Ryan Johnson movie that I like. I didn't like Knives Out. I figured everything out within the first like 20 minutes. I was like, everyone's talking about how great this is of like a mystery and everything. I'm like the acting's good, it looks good, but the story, you already know everything like right away. It tells you everything in the first like 10 minutes. Okay. I didn't like Looper. Looper to me was just 2 hours of trying to figure out which character I liked the least. Okay. So I didn't like that at all. And then The Last Jedi is honestly one of my least favorite movies of all time. It's the most disappointing movie I've ever seen. And this whole idea of like subverting expectations is lazy writing. And here's why it's lazy writing. Because you're essentially saying, all right, we know what other people would do, and so we're not going to. So we're just going to do the exact opposite, whether it makes sense for the characters or not, and just pigeonhole our own story in because we don't want to do what people expect. It's like, how about you do something that people maybe expect or don't expect exactly, but make it work so it happens in an unexpected way. If you're just going to take something and be like, we're going to do something that no one will see coming, and we won't stay true to a character arc, we won't stay true to the core of a character, you're not, it's lazy writing, because you can do that with anything. I could take any story, any book, any movie, I could write a sequel to it with the same character names and write something that makes no sense compared to what came before it and call it, subverting expectations. It's just lazy writing because you're admitting you don't understand the characters. That's all it is. It's the same thing with, for instance, all right, look, another great example of that is Man of Steel. Man of Steel on its surface is a good looking movie. Zack Snyder is an amazing cinematographer. He's a pretty good director. He gets good performances for what the scripts are. He is a terrible writer, and he does the same thing. He wanted to take Superman and make Superman something that he wasn't because he doesn't understand Superman and he doesn't understand how to write Superman. So instead, he wrote something that he wanted, and he just put Superman's name on it. It's like that character in those movies is not Superman. It's not at all. The closest you could say it is, it's kind of, the Superman in those movies is kind of a Batman. Like, Superman is what Batman should be, and Batman isn't even what Batman should be, because Zack Snyder doesn't understand Superman. Superman is the kind of character that when something bad happens, he goes, aw, shucks. Like, that's who Superman is. He's inherently corny. You have to accept that, and you have to take it, and you have to use it, and it's the only way it works. That's why the Christopher Reeve, the first two anyway, that's why those movies work. That's why Smallville works. Because they embrace the natural corniness of the character. If you are just going to be like, I'm just going to take this character and use pieces of it and write whatever I want, you're not writing the character. You're writing your own creation. You may as well just create something brand new. Like The Last Jedi. You could have named those characters, and in fact, and I'm talking specifically about Luke, you could have named Luke anything else and it changes nothing. There was no reason for that character to be Luke Skywalker at all. There was absolutely no reason. You could have called him anything else and it wouldn't have mattered. That's how little you paid attention to what came before it. And it's true, the only one who was true to the character was Han Solo. And even then, I would argue that he wasn't, because Han just left Leia when their son turns evil. Han would never do that. And how do we know Han would never do that? Because in A New Hope, Han comes back to save Luke from Darth Vader. He would never leave Leia. Ever. Not in a million years. He might leave for like 10 minutes and then come back. He might leave for some time to go do something. He would never just permanently leave. It's out of character. Even Leia was done the dirtiest. I wouldn't say the dirtiest. Luke was done the dirtiest. Leia was also done really dirty, and here's why. In The Empire Strikes Back and in A New Hope, not as much in Return of the Jedi, because that was really finishing out Luke's story, and you can argue like how that was handled and stuff like that. But especially in Empire Strikes Back, who is giving orders to all the generals on Hoth Base? Leia is. Like, I hated the one thing I hated, it made me so angry, is that when The Force Awakens came out, there was this stupid meme that came out, and it was, I'm so glad that our princesses grew up to be generals. And it had Leia from the original trilogy, and it had Leia now like dressed as a military leader and stuff like that. I'm like, first off, Leia was already the motherfucking boss, okay? She was already bossing around was bossing around everybody in A New Hope, and then in The Empire Strikes Back, she is telling the generals when to evacuate Hoth Base. They're waiting for her lead because she is the leader of the Rebel Alliance. She is the leader of the Resistance at that point. Now, in Return of the Jedi, it shifts some because she leaves part of the Resistance so that way she and Luke can go find Han. So that's why the leadership of the Alliance changes, is because she actively leaves to go save Han. But up until that point, she is the leader of the Resistance. They sideline her in the new movies and be like, oh, but she's a general now. It's like, fuck you. She was already a goddamn leader. It made me so, because it belittled her so much, and it took the powerful princess that she was, and it made her like, oh no, we just slapped general on her name, and she does nothing for at all. She never does anything of any merit or worth whatsoever in the sequel trilogy. But it's okay, we put general in front of her name, so now she's powerful. It's like, no, fuck you. She was already powerful, okay? She doesn't need general in front of her name. She didn't need Jedi powers like Luke. She didn't need any of that shit. She was already hardcore. And then what they did, and then what they go and they do to Luke, I mean, come on. Are you telling me that the guy that he shows up to face his own father, who is arguably the most evil man in the history of the universe, shows up and faces him, fights him, and then says, you know what? No, I will not fight you because I know that there is still good in you. There's still this little ounce. This man who destroyed the Jedi Order, killed younglings, and you could even argue caused the death of his own wife. And his son's like, no, there's still a shred of good in him. And I'm gonna hold on to that shred of goodness because everybody is redeemable, because that's what Luke learns in as he goes through his journey, right? He learns. So here's the thing. I gotta take my headphones off so I can hear myself, so I'm not yelling too much. You all got me on this tangent that I didn't expect to get on. So here's the thing, okay? So through Luke's journey, what happens is he learns that what Yoda and Obi-Wan have always believed is wrong. And here's what I mean by that. Obi-Wan and Yoda have essentially decided that they are going to fashion Luke and possibly Leia into weapons to destroy the Emperor and Vader, because that's the only way that they can think. They can only see that they have to fight power with power, because that's where, see, one thing that the Emperor says in the prequel trilogy is true. The Jedi are blinded by their own dogmatic views, just like he is. He doesn't realize that he is also blinded, but the Jedi are also blinded because they also are only craving power. They can only see that the way that they can stop this great darkness that they can't figure out is with power, right? Power of might, because might makes right. But Luke learns that they're wrong through his own journey, because, see, here's the thing. The Force guides Luke to leave Yoda when it's time. Just like the Force took, Obi-Wan knew that the Force was taking him when he had to face Vader so Luke could escape. The Force is also guiding Luke by giving him the vision of Han and Leia. Because, see, when he goes to leave to go rescue Han and Leia, they're like, don't leave, you need to finish your training. He'd already gotten everything that he could from Yoda at that point. He had the what he needed from Yoda, he got. And the Force knew that. That's why the Force gave him that vision. Because you see, if it had been any other Jedi, they wouldn't have left. They would have seen it as their duty to finish their training. But that's not the point of the Jedi. The point of the Jedi, his duty is to save others, to help his friends. That's why he leaves. And that's why he doesn't go back right away. Because the Force knows that the only way to defeat the evil is not with more power, but with compassion and love. That's what he learns. He sees that. And when he goes back, and see, that's the thing, is then when he goes back, right? Think about it. All throughout The Empire Strikes Back, Yoda's telling him, like, you need to complete your training. You shouldn't leave. You need to complete your training. Well, then when he comes back and he tells Yoda, he's like, Yoda says, like, no more training do you require at all. Because at that moment, Yoda knows that it was that he had been blinded. And Obi-Wan knows that he had been blinded as well. They had been blinded by their own hubris, by their own dogmatic view of what the Jedi are. So that's why when he comes back in Return of the Jedi, he's like, you don't need any more training. You are ready to face Vader. Then when he goes, so this whole time, he knows that the only answer is not going to be might. That's why when he throws away his lightsaber, he's essentially saying, I don't need violence, I don't need power, because I am a Jedi like my father was before I am. That's why that's why it works. So you're going to tell me that this guy that learns this lesson and then essentially says, I will not kill the most evil man in the history of the galaxy, save for possibly Emperor Palpatine, is then going to go like, I think that maybe my nephew might be considering maybe killing someone, so I'm going to go ahead and off him. No, would never happen. It is so out of character that I don't understand how anyone at Lucasfilm could ever have approved that. It's the most nonsensical piece of garbage I have ever... Once that happened, I was like, this movie, I can't even pay attention to it anymore. Like, everything else about the movie, I wasn't really caring for. I wasn't digging the weird, like, bad humor mix vibes and everything. Like, the only thing the movie had going for was that it looked good. But, like, even the overall story about them running out of gas in space was so stupid. But that alone, I was like, I knew in that moment, you don't understand the character at all. And there was no reason to watch it at that point. It's the dumb... I just don't know how they're not the same character in any way. Luke would never do that, not after what he's learned, because then essentially he's saying, oh, we just need to learn the same lesson again. Like, no, you fools, this isn't real life. This is a fantasy life. We don't have to learn the same lessons over and over again like we do in real life. I mean, come on. Okay, I'm done now. Let's go back to Mario. This has been fun for me, though. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I did. Whatever. This came with the prequels, the dialogue is so unbearable. So... Alright, here's the thing about the prequels. Alright, here's the thing about the prequels. And I'll explain why I don't dislike the prequels. Here's the thing though. I don't think that they're amazing. I think that they achieve one specific goal really, really well. Because here's the thing. The dialogue, okay. Some of the acting, however, Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, fantastic. And I don't even think Hayden Christensen is the worst actor in the original, in the prequel trilogy. The worst actor in the prequel trilogy is Natalie Portman. She plays everything the same all the time. I don't think she's a very good actress. I just don't. She's the same in everything she does. Whereas at least Hayden Christensen, we get the great "I hate you" scene, and he sells that really, really well. But here's the thing that the prequels achieve, I think, very, very, very well. If you boil them down to the major plot, they do a good job. And if you look at the major plot as this, which is essentially just showing why Anakin becomes Darth Vader. And so if you look at it this way, that the movie, you take this small boy who is very attached to his mother. And he basically imprints a little bit of fatherhood onto Qui-Gon Jinn. And then Qui-Gon and his mother are both taken from him. And he's essentially left to be raised by what could be argued is a big brother, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan has no business training a Padawan learner. Normally, within the Jedi hierarchy, he would become a Jedi Knight. He would spend time as a lone Jedi Knight before he then would train a Padawan learner. He's never given that time. He does the best that he can. And arguably, he does an okay job for the most part, but he has no business training Anakin. He really doesn't. It needed to be Qui-Gon, because I think Qui-Gon probably would have eventually gone and gotten his mother, which Anakin needed because he's so attached to her, and he needed to learn to let go of that attachment naturally. He then, once we get to episode, and so the first movie is showing him losing those parental figures and being stuck essentially almost alone. We then get to episode 2, where he forms another deep attachment with Padme. Padme essentially fills in. It's kind of, you can think it's kind of icky, but he essentially forms a similar attachment with Padme that he did have with his own mother, but with a romantic overtone, because he is obviously romantically interested in her. And you can even see, like, he hasn't seen her in 10 years, but at the thought of losing her, he's already so overstraught. And how none of the Jedi can see this is, again, a arrow that it's correct. They are blinded by their own hubris, totally and completely. And that's really all you get from Attack of the Clones. Like, it's almost a useless movie, to be honest with you. We then, when we get to the third movie, he is now married to Padme. They're going to have children and everything. He's so attached to her because he's put everything, because, I mean, in episode 2, like, his mother finally does die for sure and dies in his arms. he's put all of his attachment onto this one person. And the thing is that attachment is what leads to the dark side. I mean, there are numerous religions talk about that. Like I follow the practices of Zen Buddhism. One big thing about Zen Buddhism is about possession, and not just possession of things, but possession of people. You can't possess other people. You're supposed to love other people. You're supposed to care about other people, but you cannot possess them, because that possession, that want, that greed, that need is what leads to anger. And then, of course, fear, anger, hatred, all lead to the dark side. So when even the idea that he could lose her, when he's given that vision that he even could lose her, he's already felt that pain of loss, because he's never learned how to deal with the loss of someone he cares about properly, because he's been kept so weirdly isolated, because they're so worried about him being the chosen one and having all this power, that the Jedi are almost afraid of him as well, and they think, oh, well, more disattachment is the right answer for him, when it's not. If anything, more compassion, as we then see in the original trilogy, is the real answer to helping him get past this over-attachment, right? He's then willing to do anything to save his wife. He will do anything, even make a deal essentially with the devil, which is what he does, right? And all that, and the worst part is that the Force is giving him this vision to show him, like, if the Force isn't giving him this vision to say, like, you need to find more power, like, this is going to happen. The Force is showing him this vision and the idea to guide him that you need to learn to let go, because you're not. And if you don't, then this will happen. And when he goes to Yoda about it, Yoda fails him by not seeing what the Force is trying to show him. Yoda, again, is afraid that is afraid and thinks he needs more disattachment, which isn't the answer. So by not guiding him properly, he is then left to his own internal mechanisms and thoughts, which are already broken because of the pain and the loss that he had earlier in his childhood. So then he's then he's given the answer, right? Well, he's given an answer by someone who's like, we can get more power, because Palpatine is only interested in power. It's like, we can get power. It has been done before. We can cheat death together, but you have to join with me, because the Emperor is only interested in Anakin's power to the Emperor's own means. The Emperor never actually cares about Anakin. He only cares about what he can use him. He's a tool, right? And if you are so distraught, like if there is someone or something that you care about so much that you are willing to do anything, even kill others for it, and someone's like, here's the answer, I can give you the answer, of course you would do it, right? And that's what he does. He makes that deal. And then by making that deal, he fulfills the prophecy of his own wife dying. He is the self-fulfilling prophecy, because no one is actually listening to the Force. You see, the Jedi aren't in the prequels, they're never listening to the Force. They're just seeing the Force as a weapon, as a tool. But it's not. The Force is the interconnectedness of the entire universe together. But they, at that time, they're only seeing it as a weapon and as a tool that they can use to advance their own power. And that's where the problem comes in, is that's what the whole prequel trilogy is about. It's about how these different ideas of power are really what's toxic and what drives, essentially, Anakin to his fall. Because he's never given what the Force is supposed to be, which is the interconnectedness and the compassion and the love of the universe together. And I think that if you strip away all the corniness and cheesiness of the prequel trilogy, I think it achieves that really, really well. It's just that it's got all this other stuff around it that clouds all of that together, because honestly, like, right, exactly, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. The Force surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. It's between you and me, between the tree and the rock. It's everywhere all the time. And that's what they forget in the prequel trilogy. And like I said, the prequel trilogy does a lot of things wrong. It does some really good world building. I think it does tell that story really well. It's just there's a lot of stuff around it that is just kind of goofy and corny, because I think Lucas, like, he wrote the scripts and everything, and I think he needed someone to flesh it out. And by all accounts, he has said he tried to find other people to direct them and to give him, but nobody wanted to. So it just he tried to get Spielberg to direct one. He tried to get other people. Everyone said, nah, we don't want to touch it, because I think that they were afraid of what would happen. And maybe they read these scripts and they're like, there's nothing I can do with this. And this is George's thing. George should do it. Cause he and Spielberg are buddies and stuff. And so I think, and he's even said, he's like, I'm not, a great writer. I'm a great story man. And I think even he's by his own admission, it says like, I tried to get other people to work on it, but no one else would, but I wanted to make them. So I had to do it myself. And I think a lot of unnecessary hate and vitriol gets put onto Lucas really for no reason. Are they fantastic movies? No. Are they watchable? I'd say that the Revenge of the Sith is very watchable. The Phantom Menace is mostly watchable, and the only one I find the hardest to watch is Attack of the Clones. But it has its moments, like when Obi-Wan is on Camino, and some of the other stuff. The love story, it doesn't work well because honestly, Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman have absolutely zero chemistry. It's very obvious these two people are not really in love. The reason why, you take that dialogue and you give it to Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, I think it comes across a lot better. But you give it to the two of them who aren't great actors to begin with and who don't have a lot of on-screen chemistry, and a lot of it gets lost. And I think that's where a lot of it comes in at. And admittedly, even everyone will tell you, like George Lucas, his main direction is, faster and more intense, faster and more intense. That doesn't really work for love scenes. And I think that's why Attack of the Clones especially falls apart. So anyway, that's my feelings on the prequel trilogy. In a nutshell. I could go on a lot longer, but it's getting late and I really want to do this last castle.